So we're just going to dive right into this topic. I love talking about visas and other things related to study abroad. If you are new here, my name is Kimber. I'm the study abroad specialist. I create content for students just like you to realize their dreams away. So for visas, I just made a video that was talking about specifically the changes for visas in the US for 2025. Highlights, nothing has changed that much. There was some hoopla, but now we've moved on. And so I wanted to talk about some of the common mistakes because I know that student visas and the application process stresses students out so much. In particular, I have a video coming up soon about interviews for visas, and students get so worked up about it. It's not really any type of trick questioning that's going on, but it is just something that you understand. I think the weight of it, of you've gone through the process, you've worked hard of applying to the school you want to go to, and you've gotten in, and then now you actually have to go through this other process, which is similar, to actually get your ticket in to be into the country. So I'm going to start with number 7 and work my way down to number 1. And I wonder if some of these surprise you. If any of these surprise you, leave a comment below. So we're going to start out with number 7, which is missing documents. So for number 7, for missing documents, this is going to be important for students no matter, and again, this particular video is very generalized. It's not related to any specific country. Every country has different rules around visas, how they issue visas, what it actually looks like to apply. But these are going to be overall things that you can follow no matter what type of visa you're trying to get. So the first thing is going to be looking at missing documents. So for missing documents, there are lots of different documents you have to submit with your visa. So the things you would imagine, your passport, you have to submit the actual information from the school you're going to be going to. A lot of times you have to submit financial records, and then they want transcripts sometimes. There's also different elements of that. But students may often forget an element of that as they're going through and they're trying to put everything together. What I always like to recommend to students is to keep a running list. So once you know whatever your country you're planning to go to, go through and make a list of those particular elements that you're going to need, because that's going to be really important. And then that way you can gather everything ahead of time. If you've been on my channel for some time, you also know too, I'm going to say the next thing, make copies of everything. Now you are most likely, if you're doing it in person or if you're sending it, you are going to need to actually send the originals. But make a copy because things happen and it's better to just have copies and not need them. So make copies of everything. But missing documents is going to be something that is a key element of what can hold students back from getting a visa issued at all or getting a visa issued in time. For number 6, this is going to be using incorrect forms. So this is something that can be innocently done, but in the end, it can be a wrong mistake that you can take for your visa application. So what I mean by this is if you have a specific form, let's say here in the US, you have the I-20 form, right? And you go online and you're Googling I-20 and you just find a generic version, you use that. Number 1, don't do that. For whatever school you're at, doesn't matter if you're in the US or other places, there are usually designated people at the school that focus on international students. They will give you all the information. You want to use whatever forms that they tell you to use because they have the most up-to-date information. You don't want to go online and Google something and it's 2 years, 3 years out of date, or that's not the way that the particular country issues the visa anymore. Maybe they used to do a paper version, but now they do a digital version. So you want to make sure that you are using the most correct forms. Now, in general, forms don't change that drastically. There are usually some updates here and there. Maybe it's for bylaws, or maybe they have a different format now. But you just want to be aware of that to make sure that you're using the correct form to whatever visa you are applying for so that it can get issued in time. Again, it doesn't mean that if you submit the wrong form, you're going to be counted out, but you're probably going to get contacted from the embassy or the consulate saying, hey, what's going on here using this out-of-date form? That's going to set you back potentially months into your journey of trying to get your visa. So just make sure that you're using whatever form that your school has issued you. The officers at the school are going to have the most update information for you. So for number 5, we are talking about photo sizing and photo types. I'm going to just say that in this part of the video, I work with you all the time now in my career. Gen Z, I'm coming for you a little bit. I know that you are smart and crafty and you have Canva and AI and all this stuff, but do not do it. I'll get into it in a second. So for photo sizing and for photo type, this is going to be important. I know that if you have a passport, you probably have already gone through this. But for visas as well, you usually will have to submit a photo, and this is because it's going to go on the actual visa application they are giving you and on the visa they issue. And so with this, you want to make sure that you, again, in the running documents of what you need for your visa, you also understand what the requirements are for what you're submitting. So with the photo, every country is going to be a little bit different. So there are some countries that they want a white background. There's some that they want outside background. There's some they want dimly lit background. And there's some that have, different sizing on the different photos. So there's no particular standard on that. I always like to give the example of, for me, getting one of my student visas back in 2007. In that particular one, in the visa and also my passport photo at the time, I could smile because at the time you could still smile in photos in the US. And then by the time I went to go get the next one, it had to be like this blank stare. Wasn't as fun. I think it kills the vibe, but who knows? And I do understand they don't want you to emote too much emotion because most people aren't walking around smiling all the time. But I will just say that it's going to be important to understand what the rules are on that. And this is where it comes to calling out Gen Z, okay? Like, you want to make sure that you are not doing it selfie style. I know that's very tempting. Look, just spend the $10 or the 10 euros or 10 pounds or whatever it's going to be to go down to the local post office or whatever entity that can help you take a photo. It's going to be okay. I always like to just do that a little bit because you're going to think you're smart. You're going to set up a white background at home and have your friend take it, and she thinks she's a professional photographer, but they're going to know. It's just better to have it done professionally, not going to take you too much time out of your day to stop by and get that done. So just make sure you're doing that because, again, if it's not within the right type of format, it could be rejected as well if it's not in the specifics of what they want. So when you go to have these photos taken, they have specific lighting that they like to have. They have a specific way sometimes they like you to turn. And you're not going to be able to get that done at home, and it's not worth it. The other thing as well, it could be even little things like for sometimes similar to if you're getting a license, maybe they want you to have glasses on. If you wear glasses, it has to be your true self, right? So you want to make sure that you're doing that. And again, there's so many opportunities no matter what country you're in to get the photo done properly. So just do that. The other thing I will say as well is don't go the AI route either. Obviously, this is a little bit newer, but you are trying to present yourself in the best light, your most authentic self, and you are not an AI generated copy. You are a human being. People want to see your face. And so again, just spend the money and go do it. So that's all I'm going to rant on that, but you want to make sure that you are not falling into the trap of that mistake of getting the wrong photo size or wrong photo type. So for number 4 on the list, it's going to be a focus on proper fees. Now, with proper fees, it can be a little bit tricky. Again, you are now having a running list because you watched this video, and so you know you need one, but a running list of what you will need. You will also include your running fees because it really depends on what the fee is. Every country has different fees. So for some countries, they just have a blanket visa fee. That's like the best country. Whoever's out there that does. I think the UK does that, if I remember correctly from getting mine. But there are blanket fees. For some countries, you have a fee, and then you also have an extra tax fee. For some countries, like the US, you know that we like to have a lot of fees for you. So we have a fee, and then there's another fee, and then there's also an issuance fee. Yes, you are paying the US government to actually issue you the fee. So, if we could print those at home, that would be great. Don't do that. But you want to be aware of whatever these fees are, especially if they're asking you to submit a check or a cashier's check or whatever that's going to be. Because again, once you send that off, it's sort of there. Doesn't mean that you're completely counted out, but it does mean, again, it's going to hold up your visa. Most of what I'm talking about is not going to immediately have a country say you can't get a visa. It's about taking up the time of mistakes that you could have avoided that could potentially put your visa further back. You don't want to get into a situation where you need an expedited visa, and all of this could have been avoided by avoiding these mistakes. So for this, just make sure that you understand the fees. If you're paying online, it's a little bit simpler. But also, too, if you're paying online, you usually have to keep track of the receipts. So make sure you have tracks of the receipts, and then also, too, that you're providing that when you move forward to the final step of going towards getting the visa. So for number 3, we are talking about proof of exit and proof of leaving the country, because countries want you to come, they want you to study and spend money and have a good time, potentially work there, but they also want you to leave at some point. So unless you're moving forward with maybe permanent citizenship. So you want to be able to provide proof of exit. And this approach looks different for every different student. Now, as I talked about earlier, for whatever school you're going to, no matter what country you're in, there's going to be an international officer or consulate or designated officer, someone there within that framework that works with international students. Usually there's quite a few of them that work there. But they are going to be able to provide any type of documentation you need to support your visa. So again, that's why I was saying with the forms, use whatever they send to you or whatever they recommend to you. But also as well, for the actual letter, there's usually a letter, either it's a standard form from whatever government body, or it's going to be a letter from the school on letterhead that specifically states different things about who you are, what your program is, when the program starts, when it ends. And so, for example, if my program starts August 1st, 2025, and let's say I'm doing a longer program and ends in November 2028, you want to have proof of either two things. Number one, that in November 2028, you're planning to leave the country, or in November 2028, by that time, maybe you are looking to do another program, so you're in undergrad, but you're looking to do graduate school, and you may not have that particular list right there. But what you can do is the school can advocate on your behalf to say, like, we know this person's plans, at least right now. They will have to stay update to that. But let's say that you're going to a country and they're like, this person's coming here for undergrad. We know that they have plans in 2028 to do X, Y, Z. They will have to stay update to that, and you will have to follow through with whatever your plans are, either way, or even if they change. But they can advocate on your behalf. The other thing you can do too that a lot of students don't know about is that for countries that want actual proof that you are walking away after it's all over, you can go to an airline, or I'm just using airline because most people fly to the different countries, but it can be for trains or whatever it's going to be. But you can get a refundable ticket. The tricky thing is that you usually can't get a lot of these things online. So you usually will have to go to a kiosk, or if you're close to their home office, you can do that. But you can get refundable tickets that are in advance. It may not be as in advance as 3 years, but they can usually fund you up to 24 months in advance. And with this, what it is that you are basically trying to buy a refundable ticket. Even if you don't end up using it, the great thing is that you can get refunded on it. But it's focused on whatever date that you're targeting for leaving, so that you can, when you're going for your interview, or even if you're at the airport of entering the country and they are looking through your documents and looking to see, like, when is this person leaving, that you can be like, hey, like, I already have my ticket. That even puts you ahead of the game. And again, you can get it refunded if things change, but that's just another trick that you could use to sort of add that in to show that you are leaving. Because again, countries like to see that you are coming, but they also want to see you go because you are on borrowed time and you're on a visa. So just keep that in mind. So for number 2, we have 2 left. If you are still with me, give this video a like, share it, and please subscribe, and also leave a comment below. Tell me what you found most interesting so far. So for number 2, this probably should be number 1, but I like to keep it number 2 because number 1 is actually my favorite one. So for number 2, this is going to be falsifying information. And so I will just start out by saying this is not something you want to do. On average, most people are not out here doing this for student visa, but you don't want to do it. And I will just give a little bit of homage to students who are not falsifying, but it's sort of ends up in a spot where they're omitting things, and a lot of times it's by accident. So for example, I know that this has happened to some students that I've worked with in the past, and it really depends on whatever your visa rules are. For sometimes you can update this information, but let's say you submitted everything properly. You've got your passport and the information from your school, your birth certificate, and all those wonderful things, and suddenly you submit your financial records from your parents, but things change. There's a job loss, or maybe there's a job gain, so there's more money involved, and you submitted all this information before that happened, and you're not able to update it now. That's not necessarily falsifying information, but it does mean on a technicality that the information that you provided is no longer current. Now, is that going to omit you from getting your visa? Absolutely not. But you definitely just want to be aware of that, and they may come back to you and say, sometimes the visa issuing bodies will come back and before they actually issue it say, has anything changed? You just want to make sure that you make them aware of that. But what I'm really talking about here is things that are much more egregious. So falsifying passport, again, in the realm of AI and all of this new technology, it's much easier. Do not do it. So falsifying passports, falsifying birth certificates, falsifying anything like that that is going to be a key legal document. You do not want to falsify. You don't want the weight of you actually getting the visa to outweigh your actual morals. And it's going to be very important to focus on that. I know that most students are not doing that, but it really is important to just make sure. I feel that, and this is just not just for student visas, this is for anything. People feel that if they can sort of hide like the worst parts, that's going to completely sort of make them more viable, when in a lot of times if you had just kind of put everything on the table, that would have made you a lot more appealing. And that goes for anything, whether it's relationships or friendships or whatever. And this is no different. When you're going through the visa process, again, they're not trying to necessarily trick you, but they want to see everything in totality. You want to let them make that decision of whether or not you're going to be a viable candidate, as opposed to trying to hide things and falsify things and shy away from things. And so make sure that you're putting your best foot forward on that. And so last but not least, we have gotten to number one, which is my favorite one as a content creator and writer and communications pro and all these things. This had to be number one. And it actually is probably the most important mistake that you could make, because this one can completely throw off and throw out your entire visa and the visa application. And that is going to be making spelling mistakes. So I want to get into this because it's really important, and you'd be surprised how common this is. This is why, for example, even here in the US, and I think in other countries, it's a little bit similar with standardized tests, but when you're taking the SAT exam, like people say, like you get easy points just for getting your name right. So you want to think of it in that terms. Like it could be that you have spelled your name wrong. You didn't mean to, you know your name. But for whatever reason, you were so excited to fill out the application, you missed an R in your name, and now everything is off. It could be that you're going through, I know that this is something that it's not technically a spelling mistake, but with dates of the year and birthdays, this messes people up so bad. Because again, depending on what part of the world you're in and whatever application you're filling out, it is different. There are some countries that they use year, month, date. There are some countries that they use date, month, year. There are some countries that they use month, date, year, like here in the US. So you just have to be aware of that, because it really can sort of throw off your application. Again, one of the things that's going to be a catch-all for that is that the consular officer is going to be able to see, well, on the passport, it says that it's this particular date, but then on here, it's different. It depends on who the person is. They may let it slide, or they may send it back to you, get back in touch like, hey, what is the actual truth of this? So just be aware of that. There are other spelling mistakes that people make. So sometimes if you're going through, you may fill out the school wrong. That's another issue as well. A lot of times, depending on what country you're going to, schools may have similar names. University, that like where it starts, like University of, and so it's like University of California, for example. University of California, what? Is it California Berkeley? Is it Davis? Is it going to be some of the other ones, UCLA? So you have to be aware of that. That's the other thing as well. If you're going through and you're using acronyms. Now, on this channel, I talk a lot about how, especially in the US, there's so many acronyms for everything, but you a lot of times have to spell out. So going back to UCLA, you have to spell out University of California, Los Angeles, not UCLA, even though, of course, the issuing officer knows what UCLA is, but based on the form, you have to do that. So making sure that you are on top of spelling mistakes. One of the ways that you can do this is just by, number one, reading all the directions, and number two, actually going through and being focused, reviewing it. The great thing about most visa applications, it's not a one fell swoop. So even though a lot of times they will take 60 to 90 minutes to fill out, you don't have to do it all at once. So you can start on it and then work on it as you go along. Make sure that you're reading through, even if you need to have somebody else read through it to make sure that you're avoiding those mistakes. So in closing, I will just say that I know that it can be very stressful to think about student visas. It's sort of that last step before you can sort of get the keys to enter the country, but it is something that is necessary for students, and it doesn't have to be completely stressful. Just make sure that you are not following any of the mistakes that I mentioned here, and also that you are focused on putting your best foot forward. I will see you in the next one.